Picture this. You pack your bags on a Friday morning. You've been looking forward to this for weeks, seeing your grandchildren, having dinner with your son or daughter, maybe feeling like you still belong somewhere in this fast-moving world. You drive 3 hours, maybe you fly. And then something feels off the moment you walk through the door. No one really looks up. Your grandchildren run past you to their tablets. Your child is on their phone, and someone, without even realizing what they're saying, makes a comment that lands in your chest like a stone. You don't say anything. You smile. You help with dinner. But you drive home or sit in your guest room that night, and you feel it. That quiet, awful feeling. Not quite grief, not quite anger, just smallness. Have you ever left your child's house feeling worse than when you arrived? If you've nodded your head just now, I want you to stay with me, because what you experienced has a name. It has a psychology. And most importantly, it has a solution. I've spent over 40 years as a clinical psychologist, and a significant part of my career has been spent sitting with seniors, remarkable, loving, hard-working people over the age of 60, who come to my office not because they're crazy, but because their families are making them feel that way. Today, I want to share with you 7 specific things your adult children might say before a visit, during a visit, or even as a reason to cancel one that are not just hurtful words. They are psychological warning signs. And if you hear them, you need to think very carefully before you pack that bag again. Before we begin, I need to say something clearly. This video is not about cutting off your children. It is not about declaring war on your family. And it is absolutely not about being dramatic or oversensitive. This is about one thing, your emotional health. Here's what the research tells us. Seniors who experience repeated emotional dismissal, particularly from their own adult children, are significantly more likely to develop depression, anxiety, and what psychologists call identity erosion. That's a slow, painful process where a person begins to lose their sense of self-worth because the people closest to them keep chipping away at it. You spent decades raising those children. You gave them everything you had. And now, in the season of life when you most deserve to feel valued, you deserve to know when a relationship is draining you rather than restoring you. Love does not require you to accept treatment that diminishes you. Let me say that again. Love does not require you to accept treatment that diminishes you. So let's go through each of the 7 signs. I'll tell you what each one means psychologically, why it hurts the way it does, and what you can do about it. Sign 1. You can come over if you want. Of all the phrases on this list, this one might be the most insidious because it sounds generous on the surface. They're not saying no, they're inviting you. So why does it feel so wrong? Here's the psychology. Psychologists call this an ambivalent attachment signal. It's a way of technically opening the door while making it very clear that you walking through it would be an inconvenience. The key phrase is, if you want. That tiny little addition transfers all the responsibility and all the awkwardness onto you. If you come and they're clearly stressed, that's on you. You came when they were busy. If you don't come, they can claim they invited you. Either way, they're protected, and you're left holding a decision no parent should ever have to make. Do I go somewhere I'm not truly wanted, or do I stay home alone? This phrase also communicates something about how your time is being valued. Your schedule, your drive, your anticipation, none of that is being considered. Their business is the only variable that matters. Now, occasionally, everyone is genuinely busy. Life happens. But if you hear a version of this phrase consistently, if we're kind of slammed right now as the background music of every potential visit, that is a pattern. And patterns don't lie. What to do? Don't show up into ambiguity. A simple, calm response might be, I'd love to come when I know it's a good time for everyone. When would work better for you? This puts the invitation back in their court, and their answer will tell you everything. Sign 2. Just don't bring up X. The first time you hear this, it might seem reasonable. Maybe there was a difficult conversation last visit. Maybe they're worried about tension in front of the kids. But let me ask you something. When did you become someone who needs to be managed? This phrase, just don't bring up X, is a form of preemptive emotional suppression. Before you've even arrived, before you've said a single word, you're already being told which parts of yourself you need to leave at the door. The psychology here is about control. And there is a very important distinction between a reasonable request and a controlling demand. A reasonable request might be, hey, Grandpa, Can we not talk about politics while the kids are at the table? That's a context-sensitive, time-limited ask. But when it becomes a blanket silencing, don't bring up my job. Don't mention your health. Don't ask about the marriage. You're no longer being asked to be considerate. You're being asked to pretend that large parts of reality don't exist. The long-term damage of this for seniors is real. When you spend an entire visit carefully monitoring every word that comes out of your mouth, you leave exhausted, not relaxed, not restored. Exhausted. And over time, you begin to shrink. You start having smaller opinions, smaller feelings, smaller presence, because every visit has trained you that the full version of you is not welcome. What to do? Before agreeing to those terms, ask yourself, if I can't talk about this, can we have a real conversation at all? Sometimes the answer is yes, and you decide it's worth the compromise. But sometimes the answer is no, and that's important information too. Sign 3. The kids get too overstimulated when you're here. Oh, this one. I have heard this phrase in my office more times than I can count, and it never fails to break my heart because of what it does to the grandparent who hears it. Let's unpack it carefully. On the surface, it sounds like a parenting concern. Children do get overstimulated. That's real. But notice what this sentence does. It takes the children's behavior and traces it back to you, not to the schedule, not to the screens, not to the sugar at birthday parties. You. This is what psychologists call triangulation, using a third party, in this case your grandchildren, to deliver a message that the adult child doesn't want to deliver directly. It's a way of saying, you're too much, without technically saying it. And because it's framed as a parenting concern, you have almost no way to push back without appearing to not care about your grandchildren's well-being. The emotional cost of this phrase on a grandparent is devastating, because what you hear underneath those words is, my own grandchildren don't want me around. And that is one of the loneliest feelings a senior can experience. If this phrase is used once after a genuinely chaotic day, it might be innocent. But if it becomes a recurring explanation for why visits are cut short, why you're not included in family events, or why you're asked to stay in the background, that is a red flag you should not ignore. What to do? Ask a direct, gentle question. I want to make sure the kids and I have a good relationship. Can you tell me specifically what I'm doing that seems to overstimulate them? I'd really like to adjust. If they can't give you a concrete, actionable answer, the problem isn't your behavior, it's your presence. Sign 4. In our house, our rules. There is nothing wrong with having household rules. Every family has them. And as a guest in your adult child's home, yes, you are a guest. It is entirely appropriate to follow their routines, their meal schedules, their bedtimes for the grandchildren. But there is a canyon of difference between house rules and the erasure of your role as a parent and grandparent. This phrase becomes dangerous when it is used as a catch-all to dismiss your input, your experience, and your wisdom. When "in our house, our rules" is the answer to every gentle suggestion you make, to every story you tell, to every question you raise, it stops being a boundary and starts being a wall. I've worked with seniors who described feeling like tourists in their own children's homes, not family. Visitors tolerated, managed, kept at a polite but cold distance. And each time they tried to connect in a genuine way, sharing a concern, offering a perspective, they were reminded, subtly or not so subtly, that their worldview doesn't belong here. Here's what this does psychologically. Over time, it trains you to believe that your lifetime of experience, 60, 70, 80 years of living, has no value. That the wisdom you've earned through loss, through hard work, through raising the very person who is now shutting you out, is irrelevant. That is not a boundary. That is a wound. What to do? The healthiest response is to be a gracious guest in the things that are genuinely about their household. But when something feels like it crosses from house rules into dismissal of who you are, it's worth naming it gently. I'm not trying to run your home. I just want to feel like I have a place in your family. Stop. Sign 5. You're being too sensitive. Or any variation of Darvo. If your adult child has ever said this to you, especially during a moment when you were expressing hurt, loneliness, or a genuine concern about the relationship, I want you to hear me very carefully right now. What you likely just experienced is something psychologists call Darvo: deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. It is one of the most well-documented manipulation patterns in family psychology, and it is particularly devastating when it flows from a child to a parent. Here's how it works. You bring up something that hurt you. Instead of engaging with your concern, The other person immediately turns it around. You're the problem. You're the one being dramatic. You're the one making this difficult. Suddenly, you're not the person who was hurt. You're the person causing hurt. The conversation has been flipped, and you're left apologizing for bringing up the very thing you needed to address. Now, I want to be fair. Sometimes adult children do have legitimate feedback for their parents. Sometimes, genuinely, a parent has made a pattern of centering their own feelings. That's worth reflecting on, honestly. But there is a clear difference between honest feedback delivered with care and a silencing tactic designed to make you feel guilty for having needs at all. Honest feedback comes with specifics, with calmness, with an invitation to talk. A silencing tactic comes with accusation, with dismissal, with the goal of ending the conversation. If you came to your child saying you felt hurt and left the conversation feeling like the villain, that is not healthy family communication. That is gaslighting. What to do? Take a breath and don't retreat. You can say calmly, "I hear that. I'm open to talking about that. But right now, I'd like to finish what I was trying to say first." If they won't allow even that, the conversation itself is the answer. Sign 6. We'll see. We'll let you know. This one might be the subtlest on the list, and in some ways, it's the cruelest, because it doesn't feel like a rejection. It just feels like waiting, and waiting, and waiting. You want to plan. You want to book a flight, arrange your schedule, buy a gift for the grandchildren. And every time you try to nail something down, you get a variation of, "We'll see. We'll know more soon. Just stay flexible for now." This is a chronic uncertainty dynamic, and it is often used consciously or unconsciously as a form of power. Because as long as you don't have a confirmed plan, you're in a position of dependence. You're waiting on them. Your calendar revolves around their decision, and that imbalance of power communicates something, whether they intend it to or not. For seniors especially, this kind of ambiguity is emotionally exhausting. You may find yourself reluctant to make other plans because you don't want to be unavailable if they finally do invite you. You might turn down a trip with friends, skip an event, rearrange your week, only to receive a last-minute cancellation or a visit that feels rushed and obligatory. Over time, this pattern contributes directly to senior isolation, not because anyone officially said, "We don't want you around," but because the friction of accessing them becomes so high and the emotional payoff so uncertain that you quietly stop trying. What to do? Give yourself a deadline and keep it private. Decide that if you don't have a confirmed date by a certain point, you're making other plans, and then actually make them. Your time has value. Your calendar is not a waiting room. Sign 7. You always lecture me. And here we are at the last one, perhaps the most personally stinging of all. Because what does it mean when your child calls your life experience a lecture? It means your perspective has been categorized, filed away under unwanted input. It means that before you've even spoken, they've decided that whatever comes out of your mouth will be too long, too old-fashioned, too much. And so they close the door before you ever get to knock. Psychologically, this phrase is a preemptive shutdown, and its impact goes far beyond the conversation it's trying to avoid. It communicates something fundamental about how your adult child sees you, not as a source of wisdom, not as a peer, not even really as a person with something worthwhile to say, just as someone to be tolerated patiently until the visit is over. And here's the painful irony. The person shutting down the conversation is calling you the one who doesn't listen. I want to acknowledge something real here. Some parents do talk too long. Some do repeat themselves. Some do have a tendency to steer every topic back toward advice giving. These are things worth examining honestly about ourselves. But there is a world of difference between kindly redirecting a conversation and dismissing someone's entire voice before they've said a word. If your child consistently meets your presence with a preloaded sigh, a rolled eye, or a warning not to say anything lectury, they are not managing a bad habit. They are expressing something deeper: resentment, distance, or a relationship in serious need of attention. What to do? Don't try to prove you're not lecturing. That trap has no exit. Instead, try this. I hear you. I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here because I love you, and I'd like for us to talk like two adults. Can we try that? Their response will tell you exactly where you stand. What to do next? 5 steps to reclaim your dignity. So you've heard one of these phrases. Maybe you've heard all 7. What do you actually do? Step 1. Pause before you pack your bags. Before your next visit, sit quietly and ask yourself one honest question. Am I going because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? Fear-based visits, visits driven by guilt, by anxiety about being cut off, by the desperate hope that this time will be different, rarely end well. You deserve to visit your family from a place of genuine desire, not dread. Step 2. Have one honest, calm conversation. Not a confrontation, not an ultimatum, just a conversation. Pick the phrase that hurt you the most and address it directly but gently. Try. When you said X, I want to be honest with you, it made me feel unwanted. I don't think that's what you meant. Can we talk about it? You are not attacking. You are opening a door. What matters is whether they walk through it. Step 3. Set a quiet internal standard. You don't need to announce a list of conditions to your adult children, but you do need to know your own line, privately, clearly, without apology. What treatment are you no longer willing to accept? What would have to happen or stop happening for you to feel genuinely welcome? Know your answer. You don't have to say it out loud, but you have to know it. Step 4. Invest in relationships that restore you. Your social life, your joy, your sense of belonging, none of it should rest entirely on one family relationship. Friends, community groups, church, neighbors, other family members who do make you feel seen. This is not abandoning your children. This is remembering that you are a full person with a full life that existed before they were born and deserves to flourish now. Step 5. Consider professional support, not as a last resort, but as a smart investment. Family therapy can do things that individual conversations cannot. A skilled therapist can help you and your adult child hear each other in ways that years of charged history have made impossible on your own. And if your adult child won't come, individual therapy for you is still enormously valuable. You deserve a space where your feelings are taken seriously every single time. Final thoughts. You are not asking for too much. I want to leave you with something I've said to patients in my office for 4 decades, something I believe with my whole heart. Choosing not to walk into a situation that consistently diminishes you is not weakness. It is not selfishness. It is not giving up on your family. It is an act of profound self-respect. And here is what I also know. When you stop accepting less than you deserve, something changes. Sometimes the relationship shifts. Your adult child begins to understand that your presence is not guaranteed, and they begin to treat it as the gift it is. And sometimes the relationship doesn't shift, and that grief is real, and it is yours to feel fully. But either way, you leave with something no one can take from you. The knowledge that you treated yourself with the dignity you've earned. You raised a family. You worked hard. You loved deeply. You showed up again and again for people who may not always have shown up for you. You are not asking for too much when you ask to feel welcome in your own child's home. You are not being dramatic when a pattern of dismissal leaves a mark. And you are not alone. If any of the phrases in this video sounded familiar, I want you to leave a comment below. Tell me which one hit closest to home, because I promise you someone else watching this needs to know they're not the only one. If this video helped you, please share it. Not to start drama in anyone's family, but because somewhere out there, a grandmother or a grandfather is sitting alone, wondering if what they feel is real. Let's make sure they know it is. They are seen, and they matter. This is Strong Elderly Life, where we talk honestly about what it means to live with strength, dignity, and joy after 60. I'll see you in the next video.